to our September board voting meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody out this evening. Welcome. And please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start off the meeting with public comments. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience who'd like to address the board on any matter that's relevant to the board, the school district. Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes for any comments. You may want to check and make sure your microphone's working now.
Hit the button.
Thank you. My name is Brendan Jones. I live at 200 Eagle Drive. I'm going to read an email that I sent to Michael earlier this week. I'm reaching out to you at the suggestion of, my wife and I are residents of Exeter Township from 2011 to 2018 until the time we sold our home in the fall of 2018. We love the Exeter School District, the main reason we chose to purchase a home in the Exeter community. We live across the street from the wards. We had no plans on moving from our home, but the circumstances forced us to. Long story short, in the fall of 2017, my wife and children became very sick, and we traced it to a toxic mold situation in our house. 2017 and 2018, we tried to remediate the mold situation, and we did so successfully, but we could no longer live in the space that made us all so ill. This created another issue, as we wanted to stay in Watton Creek and not displace our oldest son from his education path. Bodie was in preschool at the time, and we were looking for land to build a safe mold-free home and found a property to build on within the district. We were misled by someone in Exeter School District that if we owned property in the district, our boys would still be able to attend. In the fall of 2018, we purchased the property in September and then sold our home in November of 2018. And we paid Exeter school taxes on our home from 2011 to 2018, and then we paid Exeter school taxes in 2019 on the 4 properties that we purchased in our subdivision. Luke, our oldest son, was attending Watton Creek in 1st grade. In the spring of 2019, we were set to register Bodie for kindergarten, and the registrar's office realized that our house was not built yet and informed us that Bodie would not be able to register, and this created an issue for Luke as well. We were very disheartened by the news. I was instructed to pen a letter to Dr. Phillips explaining the situation in the spring of 2019, requesting that the boys be allowed to stay in school so that their education path would not be disrupted. The property we purchased was a subdivision in Exeter Golf Club Estates. It has proven very difficult to finish the subdivision requirements. That being said, we did, and we are breaking ground on a new home in the next few weeks, with the completion of the home in December of 2019 or January of 2020. At that point, we'll be residents again in the Watton Creek Primary School. My wife decided in the meantime to homeschool our boys in the interim, but being that neither of us are formal educators, that's proving more difficult than we had anticipated, as I'm sure you can understand. Luke is doing 2nd grade and Bodie is in kindergarten. We were asking if there's any way that we could have the boys attend Watton as soon as possible, so as not to interrupt their education path any further. We are open to any and all paths to make this happen. So that's our request, is to let them start a little bit early. It's only a few months, but it'd be important for them, I think.
So you have a home that's in construction, right?
Yeah, we have a building permit that should be approved this week on the property, and Burke's Homes is going to build it for us, and they have assured us it's about a 90-day build period. So
we have a policy that pertains to that. I'm assuming we follow our policy.
Yes.
So folks, can you articulate the policy, or maybe Dr. Miller, do you handle these situations?
Yes, my office handles this situation. Family has to be able to move in 60 days from when you're either purchasing a home or building a home. They have to show the evidence that they plan to move in within 60 days of register.
So I'm assuming if it's beyond, if the request is beyond that 60 days, they could attend, but it would have to be on a tuition basis.
On
is
a
that
tuition
correct?
basis, yes, and there have been other families who have requested the same thing and they have been turned down for the same reason.
Okay.
And then when their home was completed in the district, they provided the residency paperwork and they moved in, and they were back in the district again.
So you've been working with our administration?
Not really. When we tried to register Bodie in the spring, we were told by the registrar's office that we weren't going to be able to register him, and that it was going to create a problem for Luke as well. And we spent pretty much the entire spring wondering what day Luke was not going to be allowed back to school. They did continue to allow him to finish, but we didn't register Bodie. This process of developing this property took much longer than I had anticipated. When we acquired the property, I thought we were going to be able to start to build a house, and that was not the case. We had to finish erosion and sediment controls before we were going to be able to be issued building permits. So it took us a long time to get that finished throughout, from Exeter as well as Berks County. But we have all the permits at this point to build, and so we decided we'll just homeschool them for a little while, but they're really missing out, I think, on further education at this point.
Are you familiar with the daily rate for tuition?
No, I'm not.
Well, maybe you could discuss that with the administration, if you're willing to pay the tuition, or my understanding would be that
They'll be allowed to
they'd
attend
be
a
allowed
one.
to attend. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
I mean, assuming that your property is in a one, it's in.
yes, it is.
And-
Yeah. We verified that with I guess, other people at the administration. It's in the Exeter Golf Club Estates.
So I just want to say thank you for sending a letter to me. Did you also, and I forwarded it on to Dr. Hamburger for his discussion with Dr. Phillips on Monday morning. Did you say that you paid 2019 taxes?
Yes. We have 4 properties in the subdivision.
So is that a residency requirement, or is it paying your taxes requirement?
No, it's
where the heads fly.
It's where you live.
So then he get a refund on school taxes?
He owns the property.
You own property.
So I guess you said, Susan, Dr. Miller, that, so if you're going to be settling within 60 days, your child can go into school without paying taxes or paying a fee?
Yes.
So if the family were to move in 90 days and they pay for 90 days and then they eventually move in, they have that deed and that certificate of occupancy in hand, at that point, do we refund them the past 60 days, or how does that work?
In the past,
Or
some of it has
fees?
been through, me and I've had discussions. Since I've been here, we've never had anybody take up the offer to pay tuition. Recently, I just worked with a family who asked the same question, and we were going to, because they were supposed to be moving in past the 60 days, we were going to bill them on a monthly basis, so we wouldn't be too far out. But I was thinking in this case, once you finally, broke ground, and in any case, similar to yours, once you were able to break ground and you got moving, get it, by that time you'd get probably a due date of when the 60 days were closed, then you would be able to move in. So again, following the policy, once you're within a 60-day window of either settling on the property or your property getting use and occupancy rating, then you could look at, re-entering the district.
But it sounds like,
But that's farther out than
you
60
mentioned
days.
you wouldn't be opposed to paying tuition up until that point, correct?
I'm not opposed to paying tuition. I'm not really sure what the tuition
I'm not
is.
sure it is. I'm just saying,
When did that
if
figure-
there was a fee, that you could talk with the administration, work that out, and then talk amongst yourselves.
Tuition's around just over 11,000 per year.
Well,
We'll get you
1,100 a
exact
month.
figures per diem.
Yeah, so it's roughly around, a ballpark around 1,100 a month.
So what, I don't know, what's the 60-day waiver?
It's
How
part
does
of
that
our-
work?
it's-
No, I know it's the policy, but how does it how does it work?
Okay, so say a family said, I'm buying a house and we have a
Closing.
closing, we have the paperwork, we're going to our settlement closing on October 17th. And they came in September 1st. They could start because it's within 60 days. Someone was in the middle of building a house and, they went through the summer and, I know you thought you'd be finished in June and you've been held up by a lot of red tape. Let's say they start in July and the builder said, looks like maybe right after Thanksgiving, I mean, Halloween, you begin within 60 days of the start of school, someone could register and start school. So usually settlements or house building. And we have people with tenants, you know, that they can't move into their apartment till 45 days for various reasons. So what it says on their documents, as far as their settlement or the place they can move into.
So is the threshold the start of school, like the start of the school year?
It could be any time.
Whenever they register.
So
whenever they
like,
come in to
like
register.
what I'm wondering is if, let's say that you break ground and you open in 90 days. So wouldn't technically then, if there's a 60-day waiver, so say he broke ground today, couldn't his kids enter the district on October 17th?
That's what I had said, yes. Once we get to the 60-day window, once they break ground, that they said about
Oh, I
90
see.
days.
Okay.
Once you
It's gonna
get
be
to the
60 days out.
60-day window,
Right,
yeah.
they
He
can
would
start.
need 3 months.
No, it'd be until that date,
So would be
22
Till
months
six-
for the month, basically.
okay. So it would be basically if you were to,
I mean, not quite.
good luck with your builder staying on schedule, but if your builder were to stay on schedule, you hit the 90 days, you know, to occupancy. Well, it sounds like based on the policy, you.
Pay 1 month's rent,
Pay-
or what, 1 month's tuition.
Is that fair? Is that a fair?
Yes.
Yes, because we would get something saying it's a 60-day determination.
Well, just, what if you get a 60-day determination and 61st day comes in?
Then we have to start.
That's the policy accounts for that, and it does say anything that falls beyond that is subject to tuition.
Tuition.
So what kind of documentation do you need from me for the period of time?
Do you have a sales agreement with Brookstone?
I do.
Well, I mean, at this point, anyone can pay tuition. So the only thing you need at this point would be a check. But then when we get to the 60-day window,
Okay.
you would need to have the
On the
documentation.
documentation, but you could register for where you live now. I believe you need to write a letter to request, you
Yes.
know, but that's kind of more paperwork.
Direct that to you?
No,
Yes.
no. You wouldn't get transportation.
No transportation.
No, I'm not asking for
Right,
transportation.
right. And then just direct it to me, that's fine. And then we would work out the tuition payment, and then you would make the first month's tuition payment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
bringing that to our attention, Mr. Johnson. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a building report, and we've got Mr. Simone from Lorraine Elementary. Welcome, Ted.
Thank you. So I have some visuals too as I talk through. I'm going to start with student programming. One of the things we're really excited about this year is the inaugural year for Girls on the Run at Lorraine. It's a new chapter. It's being supported by 5 of our staff members, and we have 14 girls who have signed up, and the average size is about 8 to 12. So they're really excited about that size. Parents have been excited. The group went out on Monday for their first day of practice, and they were outside. And that's earlier than has happened with the chapter at Reichten, so parents were really excited about that too. The staff really wanted to get them out early and have them exercising and connecting with one another as a team. So that's been an exciting start. They're going to have their second practice this Thursday, and the goal of that program is to build confidence in girls and also to prepare them to participate in some way in a 5K, and the program runs through November. So if they are walking, if they are running, or a combination of those two things. A couple other programs we have that are being supported that are carryovers from prior years. Science Explorers program, which is run by either staff or parent volunteers who then come in, and that's a paid program for parents if they want to participate in that. Eco Club, which is another voluntary type program that is a free program offered to students. And then a piece that was really exciting for the music department this year, they came and met with Christy and Renee and I to pitch the idea of 4th grade band starting earlier. Typically it starts in January, and they were able to look at scheduling models and staffing and realize that they could start it earlier. And with Dr. Phillips' support of that, that was moved forward, and our 4th grade students now have instruments in their hand. They've been going to practices this week. I sat in on a French horn lesson today. Don't ask me how to play it, but that's been exciting, and they're really excited to see how the 4th grade band sounds come spring, having those extra 4 months under their belt. So that's an exciting piece too, with the student programming. Student supports that are either continuing or tweaked slightly for this year. Karen Foundation, we have a new representative who's going to be supporting Lorraine, and she has a really interesting background coming from children and youth services. So We are looking forward to that partnership because of the connections that she will have and agencies she'll have familiarity with, and that will help our families as she partners with them to find resources for them. Continue some of the supports through the Karen Foundation with one-on-one parent meetings, running small student groups within the building, running some curricular pieces within the building for our 2nd and 4th grade students, which includes the PATH curriculum. The other piece, progressions, we have a full-time staff member joining Lorraine this year for progressions. Dr. Miller had spoken a little bit about progressions last week. It's an in-house program that we partner with. It's free for us, it's no cost to the district, but we provide space, they provide mental health services to our students, and it is dependent upon their insurance coverages. Lorraine is the K-5 site this year for Laurel Life, so that program has started this year within the building, and it's been a really good exercise in communication and figuring out how a program is going to function and how we can support the students within the building while making sure we try and parity programming so that the transition back into district buildings is as seamless as possible. So we've been really working hard to make sure that program is working well, and I think it's going to be a tremendous resource for our students and families. And then continuing support from Emily Seberger, our school counselor as well, meeting one-on-one with students and case management, and also running a lot of programming in small groups for our students as well. Curricular updates, I know there was some conversation at a prior board meeting about Chromebooks for 4th grade, and I thank you for approving that piece. So our 4th grade teachers have been working closely with Missy Dow and Dan Wilczek to get trained in how to incorporate technology in the classroom, how to extend their instruction with the use of technology and use that as a tool to enhance learning for students. And our students have been really excited to have access to Chromebooks within the classroom. Staffing, we've had a few additions, but by and large, it's a pretty consistent turnover from last year to this year. Me being there, we have a long-term sub that we picked up for the year, or a part of the year. Our Laurel Life staff, that's a pretty big addition actually to our staffing structure. So we have 6 staff members that are supporting that program, which is a great ratio from staff to student there. We have a few new aides as well that joined us this year as well, or had reclassifications with their job responsibilities. And some changes to the physical plant. We are anxiously awaiting a new playground structure that was part of last year's budgeting, but it hasn't come to fruition yet. We're still working out some of the pieces with that, but that should be installed this year. Christy had submitted a grant through JP Mascaro for a sensory path, and sensory paths are a great tool for students to de-escalate, to kind of refocus, recharge themselves. It can provide sensory input or output opportunities depending on the path that's created, and that's going to be installed at the end of September in part of the building, so students and staff are looking forward. I don't know if the students are yet, because they may not know what it is, but when they see it, I'm sure excited to use that. We also had a local church, North Star United Methodist. They came out and had recognized and had conversations with Christy through the end of last year and over the summer, some needs at our building or opportunities at the building to beautify our playground spaces. So they were out last weekend, and that bottom left picture, they created essentially a sensory path as well out on the playground, the blacktop area. There are a lot of different opportunities for students to interact with one another or work through it independently, and they're actually going to be coming back over the course of a few more weekends to add additional pieces to that. So we're looking forward to that. There's a lot of conversation yesterday and today from students about interacting with that. So we were really thankful for their time and support of the building and providing that opportunity for students. And the last piece is just a snapshot of enrollment comparison of where we are this year as of, I think it was last week, compared to last year's numbers by grade level, and then our overall building numbers.
Ted, can I just ask you quick, in terms of the Laurel Life staff, how much interaction do you have with them on daily, weekly, monthly basis?
Monthly, we have monthly meetings that are scheduled at this point, and those meetings are their staff, so it's their 6 staff members, Vicki Villier, and then me. We were recently talking, and you probably heard that conversation with Vicki, that we might need to increase the frequency of those meetings with the staff, particularly because it's a new program and we need to fine-tune some pieces. Simple things like they didn't have a walkie-talkie in their classroom. We need to make sure they have that piece. just kind of troubleshooting some things as they come up, because again, it is that new program. I'm typically in the classroom once a day, sometimes more than that, if I'm not over at a meeting or something, but I think every day I have been in that classroom at least once a day, just kind of walking through, or I see the group at lunch. So I think I have a pretty good sense of kind of how it's working and the positives of it and the pieces that we would not be able to do in the general ed classroom, and that program provides for us.
Yeah, am I correct in understanding that all the kids who receive services through Laurel Way at the elementary level, it's all the program in its entirety is at Lorraine, or do we have comparable programs at the other elementary schools?
No, Lorraine, it's the district-wide location
So Lorraine is our district-wide
for K to 5. So even students at the 5th grade level, we have 2 5th graders. They're at Lorraine. Students who are 6th to 8th grade would be at the junior high, and then 9th through 12th would be up at the high school.
How much space does that take up?
We have 2 classrooms, and the classrooms at Lorraine were kindergarten classrooms, and there was a fairly large storage closet in between the 2 of them, and that's been repurposed as a de-escalation room. So if a student does become elevated, that's an opportunity for the student and the staff to have a space that's away from distraction from other students for both that student's ability to de-escalate, but also to remove distraction from the classroom environment so the instruction can continue. So it's 2 regular-sized classrooms. The ratio, again, is very small. Our K to 2 classroom right now, we just had an addition about a week ago. So we have 4 students in there, and I think we're at 6 in the 3 to 5 classroom. And there are 3 staff members in each classroom. So there, again, the ratio is small.
And how frequently does a supervisor from Laurel Lake come to see the staff and interact with her?
The main supervisor with whom I have contact is Liz, and she's been with the district for a while in this building, actually supporting the NATO program and supported cyber. She comes to our monthly meetings, and then we also invite the Laurel Lake staff to all of our faculty meetings. So they've been partaking in those as it happened. Liz was, I think, at our first one. She was here today. So I'm not sure exactly what her schedule is as far as how frequently she comes in. They often, though, have staff members that are coming in either to do observation of the staff or the program, but I don't have direct contact with them. I walked someone in today, but I would say so far we've had probably 1 to 2 people, not Liz Kiefer, from Laurel Lake who have come in for some type of observation or interaction with the Laurel Lake staff.
Thank you.
So I had just asked Dr. Phillips if we could, at some point as a board, just see the setup and learn, see the action.
Yeah, I mean, they're still working their way through, so we'll talk, we'll get a time where we can get a good sense of the program.
I think it would be interesting to see. And then just one other question, I never heard of a sensory path before, and I was just curious as to like who that's for and how they access it, because it's not punishment, right?
No, it's not punishment, but it's a way. So if a student needs, it can work both ways. If a student just needs some sensory input or output, and they kind of need to focus their energy. So it could be if a student's escalated in some way and they don't have a way to kind of bring themselves back together or focus in on something. A sensory path is a great way to focus the mind and do something that's fun and interactive. So students can do that one-on-one with an aide or with a teacher, or they can do that in a small group, depending on what the need is and how it's intended to be used. So the example of the one at recess is going to be much larger scale, much more interactive, whereas the one in the building, I envision it, and Josie, I don't know if you have any thoughts on it, but I envision it probably being more of a way to de-escalate students, and it would be more of that one-on-one small group type of exposure to it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great year.
Thank you.
We're going to move on in our agenda to our ad hoc transportation committee report. Mrs. Guidish, while she's preparing, let me just kind of say a few words about the ad hoc committee. We've been meeting for the past year and a half probably, and the whole purpose was really to examine the transportation program and services in their entirety. We did an awful lot and covered a lot of ground over that period of time. I want to thank the 4 board members including myself, were part of that committee because of the time that it took and the extra effort that was involved in the whole process. It culminated in sending out RFPs to a number of potential contractors, both locally and beyond, through Pennsylvania. There were, at the end of that, there were 2 contractors that did respond to the RFP and did submit proposals. So our last meeting was on the 22nd of August. Our contracted passenger transportation expert, Dr. Wayne McCullough, was available by phone, walked us through the 2 proposals that came from the contractors, and then Ann took some time prior to that and at that meeting to do an analysis, a financial analysis of the 3 entities, the 2 proposals as well as the school district's actual costs, and we drew some conclusions based upon the outcome of that analysis. So today's presentation is really to kind of bring the board up to speed in terms of that analysis that Ann very capably did, and talk a little bit then, I think, where we go, from here based upon the outcome of that process. I'll turn it over to Ann this time.
I made this presentation August 22nd to the committee, and there were some board members present. So I'll review this. As Dr. Hamburger pointed out, we received 2 proposals, one from Price and one from Student Transportation in America. This analysis really revolves around the regular routes. It excludes extracurricular, that's the point. And that's athletics and field trips. Those are less costly items, but I did cost out the athletics, the proposals that's not part of this, and the contractors were more than district cost in that case as well. So proposals were received in July. We met in early August with Dr. McCullough, Rick, and Ben, the supervisors, and we worked through the numbers. By August 22nd, we were ready to present to the committee, and the pricing that we looked at was for a 5-year term. Price provided an alternate for 7 years. What I'm going to show you tonight really is going to be more higher level, really focus on looking at 1 year, but in the end, what the 5-year total cumulative impact on contractor versus district owner will be. So the contractor starts by giving us pricing on our current routes, A and PM. Price provided a daily rate per route based upon the size of the vehicle, and I list the different prices there. Based on 188 days and the number of routes that we have, their contract cost, the only contract cost is $2.872 million. Their average increase was 2.5% per year in their rates. Student Transportation of America, they provided a total rate per day to duplicate the existing program. Their total per year for contract cost was $2.546 million. In addition, they have some add-ons in their contract. So all of these pieces were put together to come up with the total. The increase per year provided by STA was 3% per year. So as I mentioned, there's additional days, midday runs, contracted routes, bus monitors or bus aids. So those additional costs for Price were $448,000, that's 2021. That would be the first year of the contract. STA was $454,000. So you can tell by their pricing, because they're comparable, that the analysis was making sense of what contractors really are charging for these types of services. I really can't answer why price for the regular routes was so much higher than STA. I can't answer that question. So as I mentioned, price 2.5%, STA 3%. When I did the analysis for the district our costs were projected to increase anywhere from 2.1 to 2.5 and a little higher in 1 year due to replacement of the camera system. So going back to the next step in the process, so we have the contracted cost, but there are other costs that will remain if you contract out. And looking at year one, that was $477,414 that would remain. So what are those costs? Well, we would continue to have a supervisor, because that person would be responsible for routes and benefits. There would be some clerical support or administrative assistant involved, because we still need that communication with parents and administrators. In addition, some contracted service would continue. For example, River Rock requires as an alternative to transport. ECIU, we would still use their services for early interventions, primarily what we are charged for transportation for the IU. This district would pay for software license, the repair, and we would also pay for the fuel, the diesel and the gasoline. We are part of the joint purchasing program through the IU. Contractor cost, part of the RFP was that we would continue to pay. So what they proposed was to not have any fuel there. So it's better practice for the district to control that. So looking at comparing the first year of the contract, price on the left side, ST on the right, the district is in the first column, total cost of operations, $3.167 million compared to $3.78 million price, or just a difference of $630,000 in year one. For STA, or Student Transportation of America, again, our projection for cost, $3.167 million compared to STA, $3.477 million, or a difference of $300,000. In both cases, the contractor costs were higher. The other piece to this is the revenue. Because we receive state subsidy for transportation, but we also receive subsidy for Social Security and retirement for our employees. And then there's also the rental that the contractor was willing to pay to the district to use our current facility. So the first chart on the left compares district subsidy for transportation of a little over $1 million. Contractors, because of the way the formula was designed, received more in reimbursement from the state, approximately 10% more. So comparing district operation of $1 million to a contractor of $1.27, $1,127,000, and again, it's the same for both Price and STA. You see there the chart. Social Security retirement. For our current employees, district-owned operation, we receive a little over 50% reimbursement for the state for Social Security expense and retirement expense. So almost $300,000 we receive on an annual basis for the projection for 2021. Because we would only have a couple employees, that reimbursement from the state would be a little over $18,000. Price was willing to pay rental or lease it for $36,000 a year, STA $1. So comparing the numbers, again, the district total revenue sources a little over $1.3 million, whereas both contractors were a little over, we're over $1.1 million. So again, we're receiving more revenue. Which brings us to net cost of operations. Total cost, as I said, of operations, district projection compared to contracted was less. Total revenue sources, district compared to contractor was more. So bottom line, net cost of operations, looking at year one, district would be $1.8 million, comparing to Price, they'd be $2.6 million, to STA, $2.3 million. Looking at it in terms of average cost and revenue per day per route, again, looking at a smaller per day figure kind of puts it into perspective. that the contractor, really, their rates were significantly higher than what the district operating costs as projected were. The other piece to this is the purchase of the fleet. Each contractor proposed a purchase of about 1.3 million. Price did have an option of purchasing these existing DEFA for 250,000. I did not use that in this analysis. I used a rental. So a summary, a 5-year projection summary. It's basically adding up each year of expenses as projected for district operated and for each contractor. And if you look at cost of operations, the difference between 16.5 and 19.9 is 2.3. So over 5 years, price based on projections would cost the district that much more. STA 1.8 million. And again, looking at the revenue piece, we would receive 808,000 less in state subsidy for price, and then 988 STA. So bringing it down to the bottom line, net cost of operations over a 5-year period, price would be 4.1 million more, STA 2.8. Well, let's take away the cash infusion of 1.3 million that we would get from sale of the fleet. Still, we would end up in a position in 5 years in total, 2.8 million more for price and 1.5 million more for STA. And that is the presentation. I mean, attached to the board presentation item is this presentation and actually the detailed 5-year, if anyone really wants to review it. Are there any questions?
Is there any indication as to why, I think we sent out 13 pages, 6 or 7 that showed up for the pre-bid discussion and then only 2 proposals. I mean, what I had heard just sort of through the grapevine is that they didn't feel they could compete like some of the other companies, just looking at the sort of due diligence information, just decided that it wasn't going to be a pretty good bid. Was that what you guys heard, or was there?
Well, speaking with the IU, George Longbridge, the news, CFO, we're a big lift. And
I'm sorry.
that's a big lift. In other words, we were a big operation, and because they're serving other school districts right now, and the issue with everyone trying to have enough drivers and provide a good level of service, that they didn't feel they're so focused on trying to provide the best service for the schools they have. To bring a district as large as ours, into the mix, it's really a challenge.
Yeah, I think and I spoke to George too, and one of the first things he talked about was whether or not they felt, or they sat down among their administrative team and really tried to decide whether or not they felt that they could make a commitment and be successful, and they just weren't sure they could be successful. And a big part of that was staffing. That they are struggling with staffing themselves right now. They know all districts are struggling with staff, and the commitments were large. For our district, the stakes were big, and I thought it was just something that the IU didn't feel. I think they're struggling to kind of manage their responsibilities as they are right now, and I think it's just probably more than they could sustain. Although I will say that George has been really very positive about being willing, with his willingness to be creative, with the district and consider other ways that they may be able to partner with us to look at other alternatives where it would be beneficial for the district. But we didn't go into much detail on that, but he was certainly welcome and open to a conversation.
Right. We had a short email exchange, but we're going to have a conversation.
During our process of going through all this, I know that we had a lot of visits from our bus staff, our bus driving staff. We also had Klein, they came over a couple times to talk with some new roads, and even they looked at this opportunity, they walked away from it. Now, obviously, I think one of those 2 companies we subcontract to or have in the past as needed, but it shows once again the competitive nature and the fact that, as you mentioned already, Dave, the ability to find staff right now for bus driving is very challenging for all operations. And typically the way you entice employees to go from A to B is you have to raise a salary, and because there are fixed costs here and only so much reimbursement, it gets to it's a zero-sum game or even a negative-sum game. So I think that, you know, the one thing we can really be appreciative is the fact that we've created an operation here under Rick Wegman's, you know, guidance that has become this very competitive beast, and that we're being very efficient with the tools that we're giving to us.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that came out of our analysis was that our administration and transportation service in general is being operated very efficiently, and it's to their credit, Ann and Rick, and obviously those people that implement the program, the drivers, you know, that make it work. So we were, I think, even though we were, I think, a bit surprised with the outcome, the analysis, we were, I think, happy to recognize that as a district we're doing a great job providing transportation. So, you know, I think, you know, the consensus, I believe, of the ad hoc committee was that we would continue to run transportation, that we would respond back to the potential contractors and say, thanks for submitting your proposal, but it doesn't appear as if that we're going to be able to accept it based upon our analysis of the economics. And so we're sort of, I mean, as a committee, we're presenting that recommendation to the board for your consideration. And if there's any interest in talking about that some more, arguing about that if necessary, I think that would be a good time to do it.
You want to argue?
If necessary. I wasn't directing that to you, by the way, Jared.
Because I'm
Other board
arguing-
members, you already had your chance to argue. But I mean, if there are any board members who maybe didn't participate fully in the, you know, as we did as a committee, you know, I think this is an opportunity to ask some more questions. But you know, I do recognize that most of you have attended to some of these meetings. I think you've kept up, you know, with what's been happening. Appreciate that. And you know, I think we agreed in the very beginning that the finances here would probably direct our efforts going forward. And I think I think this committee stayed true to that purpose, was that we would work up to this point, make a recommendation to the board, and then turn this back over to the board in terms of where to go from here. My sense is that I think we have unanimity of thought on this. The numbers speak for themselves, and I think we should, I believe at this point, we should turn this over to the facilities committee and allow them to start to think a little bit about where we go next in terms of our facilities needs that we have. Mr. Brick.
I was going to say, I was going to mention was that,
You look like you're going to say something.
well, I think that first, I think it's the point where we should probably accept Mrs. Guy's report, the analysis was completed. I think that we have to now turn and say that committee's function has been completed, is no longer needed. And because we've reached the conclusion we will maintain our services, we've had ongoing repairs that we've been not gone forth with because we're waiting for the outcome here that we have to either improve the existing facility or replace the existing facility on site or some other place in order to make this work. I think it's been voiced many times that moving off the site seems to be not agreeable to many. However, I think the current operation and how it's being shoehorned in for something that's suitable for 15 or 20 vehicles that you're doing over 50 is really inadequate. So I think that the next board should consider doing something that at least helps that make it work a little better.
Well, you know, we've already gone through the process of getting an architectural rendering of what the facility could look like in the event the district makes improvements. And that recommendation, I think, included a 2 or 3 bay addition to the current cinder block structure, taking down some of the old sheds that are currently used as storage and not really non-functional. Hopefully, creating more space and obviously making more of an opportunity for more maintenance here within the district. So that plan has actually been examined by the township and has gone through a review in terms of code. And, we received assurance, I believe, from the engineer of the township that if we were to move forward with that particular plan, it would not be subject to any disapproval from a codes perspective. That's my understanding.
Right, not you wouldn't have to go through the county or the term, this is slipping my mind, as long as we stay within that.
Right. So, that was one of the directions, and I think probably one of the primary directions that we were considering. But again, I think that kind of falls a little bit outside the purview of this ad hoc transportation committee. And my sense is that we need a committee to kind of move this to the next step, and whether the committee comes in and validates the plan and makes recommendations to the board for improvements to the current facility, or consider some other options that may have been considered previously or not even been considered yet. I think that's something I'd like to turn over to that committee.
The only thing that I was kind of thinking about that I don't think has been parsed out, to lack of a better term, is looking at joining the township and their movement over to the Giant Center. I know that there are concerns about what our current facility can handle, especially that we don't have a wash bay, we don't have one repair bay that works. I don't know if those are addressed in the architectural rendering that we looked at, but if it's not, I think that that conversation is to at least be approached with the township fairly soon, because we're losing out on that window.
I've been told unofficially, back to, they don't have it.
And I've been told that unofficially from some individuals that there's no interest in having our operation monitors up there. The plans that we did look at were, as Dave indicated, we basically will leave in place the building we have, knock down those sheds, reorganize, put in 2 new bays. The wash bay will probably go away. That was more of a luxury, probably, than anything else, but it's something to deal without that. The key is getting 2 bays that are long enough to handle all the buses, taking the existing bay that's there, converting that into more of an office/storage room for all the parts, and then the tires which are stored on site may have to go to a secondary site because they're not used on a daily basis anyway, and when needed, they can be brought in from that location. So that's what was proposed in the past.
And the preliminary numbers for that, I'm going to ballpark, and please don't hold me accountable to this, but I thought we're about 1.5 million for the total for renovations. Yeah, very, very, very sketchy, very
I think that would
ballpark.
set it up.
Yeah.
I think the less you do and the more tight you can keep it to the existing facility, the more competitive. Of course, the problem is you're going to have to go through the breaks of this when you got to do it by the contractors. That is going to immediately control some of this.
And of course, this doesn't account for, any future move toward propane. That may require a whole different kind of an analysis, if that's something we want to commit to. Having the ability to fuel propane vehicles using our current site location probably would be impractical, if not impossible, because of this space needs that we would need for that.
What I recall from the presentation was the offset of the buildings in the area to the propane tank would not be adequate. So one conversation that had occurred was using part of the far reaches of the Jackson Wall lot, fencing it, protecting it, obviously with security, using that as your fueling station with the propane because you cannot locate that on site at the curb.
So again, there are obviously more discussions that have to be had with facilities, but from my perspective, I think that the ad hoc committee is ready to terminate its efforts. And again, I want to thank those folks who participated, and also I want to thank Ann for all the work that she put into it as well. And I think we all were well educated in in the process, and learned an awful lot, not only about transportation, but about how well we do transportation here in the district currently, and how lucky we are to have the people we have operating the programs we have. I don't think we necessarily need to take a vote because we're not making any changes. I mean, you had sort of made a reference, Jim, to possibly kind of moving forward. I don't know, vote again, maybe you didn't, but we're not making any changes here. If we had been moving toward a contract, I think that probably would require something definitive. We're going to stick with where we are. I don't think that requires.
Does a dissolution of the committee have to happen or some type of act?
We're just gonna have to call the chair.
And isn't there still $40 million or something that the school districts could use for like getting buses and things like that? Has that been?
Well, the last time I was on the website, the information wasn't available yet. I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, so I'll go out and check. What's going to be available for next year? I mean, there's still funds available, but particulars weren't posted.
Because, I mean, if that were the case, then get up on Moreland, get a whole fleet at one time because of the amount that they got from the state.
They receive funds for their infrastructure, their tanks and pumps, but they also at least receive some funding for their
Didn't they say something about they could do like a drive-through every day or something to if we were using propane and fill up the fleet?
That was,
That would be
Maybe
less,
someone coming to Redfield?
that's when you, that's not as cost, that's when your benefit is using using that system starts to deteriorate. When you start to yield the benefit cost-wise is really when you basically contain all the operation in the house at that point.
Because, I personally think that using the fuel that we're using now is not environmentally friendly, and I think we need to do something to help the environment and not use the type of fuel that we're using in the buses these days.
We will continue to build on that. We know that's the direction that we should be going, but it will take time.
Yeah.
Are there any questions, any further discussion on this topic? Okay, thanks. We're going to move on in our agenda to section of minutes. It's recommended the Board of School Directors approve the minutes from last month's board meetings. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I do want to say and remind board members that this will be a consent agenda, so all these items, for the most part, have been reviewed at our workshop meeting, and if any board member would like us to pull out an item for an individual vote, just signal that before we get to that item on the agenda. The treasurer's report, it's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the treasurer's report for August and the payment request for August 21st through September 17th. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Dr. Hemper, I hope when we get the new board that we get to have a treasurer to, check out things on a monthly basis like I used to do, rather than, I don't know what we're doing now.
Well, Elena's she's our.
So, we're gonna get somebody because we don't trust you.
Well, Elena doesn't, she's not in the district, she doesn't live in the district.
But you're looking for board members to
Yeah.
assume the responsibility, and that would be our expectation as well.
So I would hope.
She's
that-
filling in. Thank you for filling in the absence of the treasurer.
All right, so
Good work.
I think that role can also be handled by staff too.
No,
And I think that she's doing a fantastic job.
I think she's doing a very good job. I think the point that is being made by my friend across the aisle
I heard her
is
point.
that we're responsible for this, and therefore there should be a member of the board who's oversight.
I did treasurers for about 7 years, and I think it's important that there should be a board member that takes on that role.
I just want to clarify, there were no votes, so the motion carries. Board policy, it's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve policies numbered 1 through 6 for second reading, and policies 7 through 13 for first reading. Second. Any discussion?
Can we take number 803 out and vote separately?
803. Okay, let me reformulate the motion. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve policies 1 through 6 for second reading and policies 7 through 11 and 13 for first reading. Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve policy 803 school calendar for first reading. Second. Any discussion?
I voted no on this because I am not sold that this is not a crossover to management by the board, despite our conversation last week.
I'll vote yes, because I think this is something the board is responsible for. This is why we're elected, as part of our responsibilities. I think in the past, and it was before even Dr. Phillips was on our seat, we've always had an ongoing conversation with the superintendent regarding what we think is appropriate based on our personal beliefs and feelings. You know, we don't think we should neglect that or hand it back to someone else.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I do believe that it's the school board's responsibility by code. I may be mistaken, I'd have to take a look at it, but it may be our actual responsibility to approve the calendar. That it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to design the calendar. That's a recommendation of the superintendent, and that's, I think, the policy. But I think there probably is a hyperlink or reference to the school code that indicates that boards have a requirement to annually approve a calendar. But, I mean, I respect your right to a no vote. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One no. Motion carries. Thank you. Business functions, Mr. Gello.
Thanks, Dr. Amber. It is recommended that the board of directors recommended the board of school directors approve all business function items A and B. Did I leave anything out? I got it this time? You're good this time. This time. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Gello. Personnel Committee, Mr. Jupina.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approve and ratify the following personnel items from numbers 1 to 6. There's an extension in number 7.
Second.
Any discussion?
I wanted to ask a question. Under conference requests, number 4 and 18.
I think you excluded that, so that's next.
That's next, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, your notes, I'm sorry.
Any additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve all staff conferences except, no, you're there, except number 2.
Except number 2.
Okay. Is there a second?
Well, that would also include the ones that Jerry has a question.
Sure, there's also a question of approval.
So if you have a question about 4 and 18, I have an extension on
So it's recommended the Board of School Directors approves all staff conferences with the exception of 2, 4, and 18.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So, do you want to make a motion for staff conferences, staff conference 2?
Have in front of you, recommended the Board of School Directors approves staff conference to 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, did you have an abstention? Oh, I didn't know that was your reason. I apologize. Do you have any abstentions?
I abstained due to a previously stated conflict of interest.
Thank you. Motion carries.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approve staff conference number 4.
Second.
Any discussion?
A question, are personal days being used for that?
Would you have the same question for 18 as well?
Yes. For 18 as well. Restate.
It's recommended the Board of School Directors approves staff conferences number 4 and staff conferences number 18.
Second.
Any discussion?
As noted.
So, I'm sorry, your question is,
Are personal days being used?
I said, are they being paid, or are they doing this on their time?
Correct. Are personal days being used by the recipient for these days?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, they're pretty nice professionals.
They're professional days for the employees. As they are for the other conferences that other employees are attending.
But this is about summer education, which winds its way into Mr. Hathaway's private business. So should the school district be paying for substitute teachers $460 for him to go learn more about his private business?
I think whether Mr. Hathaway was doing this on his time or he does it on our time, it's still not going to be a classroom. We're still going to wind up paying for a substitute in the classroom. So the question is whether or not we want to approve his personal days for that. That's a whole other conversation, but as far as approving a sub cost, that's what it is. It's approving the cost of subs, and we're going to have to pay for the subs if the person who's not in the room just doesn't do his own sick day.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a staff conference if he were taking a personal day, it wouldn't be on this
Right.
list. In other words, he would just take a personal day and it would be approved that way.
That's what
Yeah, so we're approving this as a staff conference, essentially.
Right.
And so your suggestion is it shouldn't be, he should be taking a personal day for this.
Yes, because if any other teacher has a side business, that they can find a way to make it about education. They can then get, if they're in the food business, they can get the National Food Show. They can get paid for that and as a professional.
Is there any other discussion? My 2 cents on this is that it's how you look at it philosophically. I think that Mr. Hathaway's attendance at these conferences, he's representing the school district, he's representing a very valuable program, he's learning more about how these programs operate. I think we're the beneficiaries of that, of his knowledge and his accumulated knowledge, as well as the fact that this is a program that has been recognized statewide, even nationally, as being exemplary. So I think there's value for the district in this. I would vote to approve it. That's my
Bob, could I ask? So, go ahead. Sorry.
I thought we were supposed to get a rundown as to how much money he's getting paid. Wasn't that supposed to be last year, and we haven't heard anything about it? How much it's costing him?
Can I just say it's a little bit off the topic of this? we're talking about the conference, so maybe we can talk about that at a different time. You're talking about how TIPS is operated and how we're paying for it and all that sort of thing. So this is,
Are we still putting in 25,000?
yeah, that's our annual
And
conference.
I'd like to know what that 25,000,
Pays for staff.
how it's used.
Pays for staff and other administrative
Well,
costs.
he gets paid too, doesn't he?
He's part of that
Yeah.
cost,
But
as
we
are our
don't know.
teachers.
But we don't know how much he's getting paid. That's the whole thing. That's what I want to know. And I think we wanted to know that last year, and we still haven't found out. Right?
Mrs. Page, I think that's just a little off the topic, though. I mean, we're talking about a conference here. Is there any other discussion about the conference?
Well, I think that Jerry, which I don't agree with him, but I think that he does make a valid point because that TIPS, it's a good program. 2 years ago, I did speak on how much I liked the program from the granddaughter event, but at that time I thought it was a district-run program. And I've since found out that it is not. And I know that you said it's going to benefit the district, but we're not a partner with the TIPS program. And so I think what Jerry's saying makes sense that other teachers or other people cannot attend conferences that, support their private business. So I do want to see what you're saying.
I mean, again, I think it's a philosophy.
Right, if you wanted to go to something for that, then you do something personal things. He has personal reasons, could you, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I think the costs that are associated with this, I mean, are all covered. I mean, he's covering his actual costs. A lot of conferences we send people to, we have to pay for not only the subs, but we have to pay for the actual cost for registration and travel and transportation. I don't think we're paying for that. In this particular case, the only thing we're covering are staff costs. So he's actually the beneficiary of this, I think, of the fact that he's established as a strong, program entity in this area. I mean, so to be able to go for free, or either that or he's going for free, or he's paying for his own registration and transportation costs. But we're not paying for that. But that's somewhat different.
To my mind, you are opening a can of worms for the future for other employees with their private businesses to use the same reason that they can use it in their teaching, they can use it in whatever. And you would see costs
My response to that is I believe this is a unique situation. I mean, this is, we're talking about summer programming. We don't operate our own summer program, and so in a sense, this is really valuable for us as a school district to have somebody who's able to kind of coordinate, operate this. I think it's, for us to actually run the program ourselves and offer the similar service ourselves would be cost prohibitive. So the little bit that I think we're spending here is a small price.
Are we required by PBE to have a summer program?
No.
Just checking.
Could I just ask quick? This is approved by the administration under board policy, or is this approved under policy 74 and collective bargaining agreement? I should have phrased that better as a question, but that was a question.
I think
You
this
mean
is
staff conferences in general?
Yes.
I mean, just in general, the whole idea of staff
Yeah.
conferences.
They're approved by administration.
Yeah, I mean, they're approved by administration, and then the district authorizes the costs associated with those.
And has the administration deemed that this abides by the policy?
Yes.
Okay.
What I found odd is the one event appeared to be occurring this week versus the other was occurring in October. Am I mistaken about that? And if that's the case, wouldn't Matt have known about this activity prior to days before or the same week of it occurring? Or even if it was on our agenda last week, that's still pretty late in the game?
My understanding was he was notified at a late date.
We're approving one here that already happened. Wow. September 6th, September 12th. So,
appointing.
Any additional comment, any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Hands of no?
Hands of no.
Hands of no? 5-4, motion passes. Thank you. And that was for both 4 and 18, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that concludes the personnel committee. Good. Student functions, Mrs. Stratton.
Because you stopped at 7, did you get the 3 and the 5 department? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was everything but two.
Everything but, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 2, 4, and so 8.
All right, for student functions, there are 7 items of field trips that are reported within a 60-mile radius. And then it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the following student function items 1 through 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's right, teacher. Is that how you do it? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Election of PSBA officers for 2020. It's recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the candidates as listed in the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
1 no. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to committee reports, and we'll start out with the athletic committee. Mr. Adams.
Just a quick report, mostly from Tom. I'm just very happy to say that many of the fall sports are off to a really good start, and we're all in playoff contention. But of special note, the girls volleyball team is right now undefeated at 5 wins and 0 losses. So we're very hopeful that they will go on to defeat Wilson, if they haven't already, all of our fall teams, and our homecoming game, will that be, who's the?
27th.
No, it's against Conway Weiser will be on the 27th, and we'll have a bonfire,
The
26th, to get really riled up about it.
So I'll get a parade on the 26th.
All the cool kids have to be there.
When you said Wilson, did you mean the Eagle Empire?
That's exactly what I meant.
And there will be fireworks again at home.
So there'll be fireworks when we beat Wilson, Bob promised.
At homecoming.
Just a quick note on that, the student who sent the request for board to participate, when you respond back to her email, it doesn't go through. So I don't know if you guys responded back to her.
Yeah, top down.
Yeah, if you send it to me, I'll get it to her, because my response went to her.
Okay.
I sent my email.
Oh, I didn't know. I responded.
Never mind.
Is that the way it works, Mike? I mean, you can't respond to a student email?
I forget, I responded to her and I just said this is undelivered.
Yeah, this has happened to me before.
If the board responds to me, I'll make sure we count them. I'll get them and I'll send them to you, and then you can make sure it's here.
Anything else, Mr. Adams?
Nope.
Thank you. Curriculum Committee, Dr. McClellan.
And so we met, the curriculum committee met last Tuesday before the workshop meeting. And Dr. Winters gave us an update on virtual academy. There are 5 teachers for 4 subjects and a Spanish teacher. There are 8 full-time students at the high school level. That's all the program really is capable of having right now. 8 full-time students. Those are students who came back from the Brandywine Virtual Academy. Yeah, that's great because it's, it's a savings to the district, and also, more control of the academic part of it. Program's not really set up for any grades below that, but hopefully that, is the goal to have, to be able to have, some of the younger grades in the program. So there's 8 full-time students, and then other students are taking just one course. So did you say the Spanish was, that was full with 25 students?
Is that?
Phys ed is the one.
That was phys ed, okay. So they can accommodate up to 125 students, 25 per subject.
How?
So,
How?
what?
Online
Virtual
phys ed.
phys ed, how?
You,
You
so
have to sign up for the course, we won't tell you.
there's a health and wellness component that is more content driven, and then the physical piece is done through logs. If the student will swim or walk or jog or engage in some sort of physical activity, and then you log it that way. It's very popular, largely for 2 populations. It works really well for what I'm going to call that medically fragile population. Students that maybe have a medical condition that doesn't 100% preclude them from taking phys ed, but they may not be able to handle the level of physical activity that a traditional PE class in the high school might require. It also works really well if you have a student who wants to take a lot of high-level electives in core subject areas that they can take, you know, a PE online, and that may free up a spot in the schedule.
Satisfied? All right, so is there anything you want to add more about the virtual academy?
Things are going really, really well. You know, as I said at the curriculum committee last week, you know, it's really the people, it's not the program, and we've got fantastic high school teachers right now that are just doing a phenomenal job. And anytime you start something brand new in the first year, you've got obstacles, and there have been some delays on some things, and they haven't complained once. You know, when I've had to send an email to say, hey, I'm sorry, it's been a couple of days, I know we're behind, they just smile and roll with it, which is wonderful. We have training scheduled for them at the end of the month. We have a trainer from Edgenuity coming in that's going to provide additional training for them. But it's a great group. That core group of high school teachers are amazing. I can't say enough about them. And that's really what has made things go so well. Really.
So do you have any idea, like, when we'll be looking to expand to?
We just started. We just started, we're 2 weeks in.
Okay.
But no,
Maybe we'll do
we'll
it
certainly
future.
assess it at the end of the semester and at the end of the year. I like that enthusiasm.
It's a good program, and, you know, and then we'll get a
It's super
virtual,
great.
virtual school. So the other day, Dr. Winters presented some data, start reading and math data and the trends. And that was for individuals, all different schools, and we looked at that. The data is going to be used to inform instruction. There are some areas, you know, that need improvement, which are being identified, and ways to address those. Before Julie Klein and Rose Valinsky left, they did compile that, you know, did a lot of work the summer before last, already begun to work on addressing some of those areas that need improvement in math and reading. And that's going to continue, and, you know, also to not just have the data, but have teachers know how to use the data, you know, to inform their instruction. And next month, you're going to be, Dr. Winters is going to give his presentation, so you'll see, you know, specifics on it. So that's basically what we did in our meeting. Any questions or anything else you want to add, Dr. Winters?
You're good. You got it.
Next up, Facilities Committee, Mr. Brady.
Next meeting is going to be in 2 days, Thursday evening, we're going to meet senior high schools at 6:30. Looks like the weather's going to be cooperative. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a walk outside. We're going to see how the construction is going on in the baseball field. We're going to take a stroll down to the football field and see how that's doing along with the track and see if everything looks like it's wonderful. We're giving a good presentation to the public. Then we're going to stroll inside for a presentation about the.
Our list is coming first, can we change the order so
It'll
she
be
can
dark.
get herself done?
It'll be dark at 7:30. That's why we're doing 7:30 with Melissa. Sorry. Is it okay?
No, She was, okay, we'll talk to her tomorrow about
I mean, we could, but it'll, it's hard.
that. No,
Just
that's
put the
okay.
lights on, no big deal.
There are no lights
It's
on
all
our,
said and
there are
done.
no lights on our baseball stadium. We're
Yeah,
very efficient
flashlights.
community.
Yeah, green
It
flag.
might look better in the dark. Exactly. But that's my report.
Thanks, Mr. President. We're going to skip personnel committee, we're going to move on to policy committee, and there's no report for policy committee. Student functions committee, Mrs. Stratton.
In the most recent dates to remember email that we got, I didn't see that the student forum for October 18th is in that, so I just want to remind everybody about that and hope that they can come out. And it seems to be the same group of us that go to that there, but I think it's very important to listen to the students and their thoughts. October 18th, it's a Friday.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Technology committee, Mrs. Pager.
No report.
Community Education Foundation, Mrs. Wilson.
Yes. This year, ECF has donated $23,500 roughly to the school district. Recently, in the beginning of September, we donated $1,000, transferred $1,000 to the district to support the high school auditorium sound system, and that money was from an anonymous donor. And additionally, a donation of $480 was transferred for Lorraine Elementary, and that was from the Gift for the Future program and money that was received in honor of Mrs. Peggy Gumbert's retirement. We'd like to also thank the countless individuals who have donated from the Amazon wish list, items from trail cameras for Watt Creek, to glockenspiels for Reichten, to teacher training books for the junior high school speech pathologist. It's great to see that the Amazon wish list adds value to the students and teachers of Exeter. And also thanks to Mr. Gelliff for the Bluetooth speaker for the Reichten band room. Thank you. That's you.
Oh, that was all the way in the back. I forgot all about that.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right, great. Thanks, Mrs. Wilson. BCTC Joint Operating Committee, Dr. McClendon.
Yes. We met August 28th at the East Campus. The meeting started off with these 4 students who were being honored because they placed first in Skills USA. So it's a national competition. They went to Louisville, Kentucky for 4 days, and they have, to complete a project. They each of the 4 boys, they presented their part. Like one was electrician, plumber, construction, and they had some pictures of the projects that they had to do. But they won. That's a big honor because the whole nation they placed first. Their team placed first. So, and I was really impressed. One of the students, there were 2 graduates, and one of the students who graduated in June started his own construction company already. Wow. So, I mean, these students, like, just coming out of high school and doing these kind of things is amazing.
Capitalism, can't be.
No student loans or anything, so I just was really, they're from, Berks County School, none were from Exeter, but, we have these students too. They gave an update on the new welding building that's in progress, and the expected completion is in April, May, and they think they'll be able to take some of the evening adult students in at that time, and then we'll be ready for new students in the beginning of the school year 2021. This year, for this current school year, they had to turn away 20 students that wanted to take the welding. So it was really a need for that new building. They hired a new curriculum director. You have this joint operating committee briefs. That was in your packet last week. But I just wanted to point out one thing from that. And that was that we approved an articulation agreement with RAC and Kutztown for the students who are in the early childhood. They created a 2+2+2 model. And what that is that the students can earn credits with an associate degree in RAC, and they can also earn credits for BS in education at Kutztown. I think that's really great. They're doing more now where students can earn credits, but this is a particular articulation agreement. I'm not sure on the new home, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, first of all, the parade of homes that's sponsored by the Home Builders Association was canceled for 2019. And I don't really know why. They didn't know why, and I looked online, I didn't really see why, just it was canceled. So the new home, that home that they built would have been part of that. But I may have mentioned before, but I didn't say it again, is that in the past, they have done an auction of the house, but this time they're going to list it with a realtor. And so it's going to be listed for sale, and my understanding is that the realtor is not going to take a charge of fee for that. They're just have a few more things to finish up, and then they're going to be starting on the new home. So our next meeting is 25th of this month at West Kansas. And I just want to also remind you, I did this before. I know that Pat, you're planning to go. Well, we're both planning to go to the cosmetology, but you know, they have on Fridays they have lunches that you can get prepared by our students at a very reasonable cost. You can get, you know, cosmetology, haircuts.
Getting my nails done?
You definitely can
Hey.
get your nails done.
You and me, it's you and me.
So, you know, I encourage you to, you know, to go if you can and support our students. No, he wants his nails done. You want a pedicure? You want a pedicure? You want that too?
Hey, load me up.
Thanks so much for putting that. DCIU Board of Directors will be meeting this Thursday evening, starting at 6:15. Legislative Liaison, Mr. Geller.
Dr. Hamburger, I'm a slagger and I'm not prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Geller.
Can I just say something, Dick?
The resolution that the board passed 2019, number 2, was submitted to all the representatives, and I've so far talked to Mark Rosick. I think I said that last week.
Yes.
I talked to Mark about it, and I was talking to Chad the other day about it too. Nothing important to report, but they did come back in this session today.
Are you going to reach out to any other, we've got 5 in our.
Leave it as my intention, yes.
Great.
I think also that some of the representatives wanted to increase more charter schools, you know, within the state. And I believe that Governor Wolf vetoed that measure. He's very much for public education, so think about that when, you know, he's a great advocate for public education. Because, you know, these charter schools, they cost billions of dollars that could have been in public education, and they you know, people opt out and send their kids to, you know, to these private charter schools, and most of them don't even graduate, like 50%. So, and the school districts like us, you know, are throughout the state are paying that price, you know, billions of dollars, and it's wasted.
Is there any updates on that Senate bill, I forget which number that was, that where they want to say that if a cyber school is not performing, then that student has to come back to their district? I know they're trying to get Senator Swank is one of the sponsors of that.
Yeah, the bill specifically is if the district has a cyber charter school and you choose to go, you pay. You don't, the district will not have to send the money with the student.
Does it have anything to do with how that cyber school is performing?
No, unfortunately, no. The other issue with that is there's bipartisan support, which is great, but it's never going to go anywhere. The lobbying power of the charter and cyber charters are too great in Harrisburg. So even the people that are moving it forward understand that it's somewhat difficult. But there is, the session is just starting and there's a lot of groundwork. As Pat said, Governor Wolf is trying to put a funding sort of, like almost a, forget what it's exactly called, a fee on the charters and the cyber charters. And they're pushing back against that. My understanding is the first day of the session, there were busloads of cyber charter students and charter students with their parents that were there lobbying against it. So it is a difficult road, but Governor Wolf seems to be taking on that fight at least, which is certainly an increase in awareness and his fight since he's been there.
And there's a difference between the brick and mortar charter schools and the cyber schools in terms of, their how their academics are, how successful they are. But do they lump them all together, right?
The lobbying groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many children do we have going to?
It's right around 70, I believe.
It was less than, it used to be 80, but it's still less.
Yeah, it's right around 70.
Township Borough Liaison, Mr. Patino.
Yes, I don't have any unofficial comments from the township, but I have been talking to the liaison for the township, Vinny and Vinny Biancone, and we have not really had any definitive answer. We know that they're looking to do some work at the promenade, but at this point, they haven't really done anything with that. I don't know what their time frame is, but we can ask them to step it up. But I would suggest that as a board, we work on a dual track here, under the assumption that what we already have on the table, should be co-pursued with whatever the township comes up with, if there's something viable there.
I agree with that, and even if we could figure out a way to have some shared interests, I mean, the township vehicles for some of the plows are definitely wider than our buses, but they're not going to be longer. It may not be an inconceivable approach to see if they're going to have a wash bay there that can be extended to fit one of our buses inside the facility. Because the toll that the salt and the brine will take on any undercarriage of a vehicle is significant. If we can figure out a way to prevent that from happening, and then also just having buses that look and represent the district well, as just a small piece where we can coordinate if we can't look at going into a shared facility, I think that that's definitely worth the conversation.
Thanks, Mr. Patino. Superintendent's report, Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Dr. Hamburger. The district is off to a good start. We had a productive opening day toward the end of August. Everyone was excited to be back. We introduced our new staff to our ATSD family, and we heard a good presentation from Dr. Ron Whitaker on equity and diversity. First student day went very well. Staff needs to be complimented for a great opening. It was very, very quiet, which is a good thing. Sports programs have begun their seasons, and the students are giving their best efforts on the courts, fields, whatever other, I guess, would be courts, fields. It pretty much covers all the sports, right? Courts and fields for the fall.
Swimming pool.
Oh, in the water and on the greens. Okay. Students are excited to be back. You go into the buildings and the classrooms, the hallways are filled with smiles and laughter, and we're getting back to instruction. As far as open positions at this point, the supervisor of math STEM position is in a third round, final round interviews on this upcoming Monday. The Rifton assistant principals interviews start next Tuesday. We have 2 part-time aide positions that we had to repost, and we are still unsuccessfully trying to fill the Rifton crossing guard position. That's been a position we've had trouble filling for years. One point, we've had some safe-to-say incidents concerning threats. I want to thank everyone that saw threatening posts on social media and responded by calling the Safe to Say hotline. None of the threats proved to be credible, but due to the nature of the language used, the Safe to Say operations team chose to involve the police. We typically discuss the dangers of social media in our schools, but students need to be aware of using terms containing threats of violence, shootings, and guns. They're taken very seriously and set off a host of steps to ensure we keep everyone safe. I would ask parents to speak with their children about the seriousness of social media language, specifically threats against school, others, and dealing with guns and shootings, etc. On an extremely happy note, this morning I met with the students and staff from Tudela International School from Spain at the high school. A group of over 20 students and staff from Spain are visiting us for 2 weeks. This exchange program is great for our students as they get to interact and host these students over the next few weeks. I did have a conversation with one of their administrators accompanying the group, and we discussed a formal partnership similar to the one we have with the school in France. There'll be more conversations to come about that plan from Ms. Spees and Ms. Rodriguez. That is my report.
Thanks, Dr. Phillips. Are there any board members that would like to be heard at this time? Let me just report that we will be having an executive session following this meeting to discuss personnel issues. And if there are no other comments from board members, I'll accept the motion for adjournment.